Having been an elite swimmer most of my life and now a professional triathlete, I feel as though I've dialed in exactly what kit I need to get the most out of myself, whether it be technique-wise or performance-orientated. So I'm going to take you through roughly 10 of my most valued products, and also something that I wish that I'd had during my swimming career that has made a massive difference to my triathlon career. So all of this kit can be found on the links in the description below, so just check that out if you want any of them. So first things first, a kit bag. Honestly, I cannot recommend this enough. Having to literally carry all of the stuff in my arms from my normal swim bag onto the poolside is an absolute faff. Don't waste your time, just get one of these. It's cheap as chips off of Amazon, so yeah, really worthwhile getting, and it just saves a ton of hassle. Okay, next up, Pool Boy. So simple, basic, almost everyone uses one, but it's a phenomenal tool for being able to increase strength, but also technique. So if you haven't quite got the timing correct on your swimming technique between your arms and your legs, it's a great tool to have to ensure that you are able to concentrate on that rather than concentrate on keeping your hips high in the water. It's also good for like strength in the shoulders. You can do a little bit more of that without having to rely on your legs. In conjunction with that, a pair of paddles. These are probably the better paddles that I've used in my experience. There are loads of other ones that do different things and can emphasize certain parts of your stroke, but for me these are pretty great. I use the large set just because I'm quite strong, so I don't need to necessarily use the smaller ones because I don't have to build up to these because I'm already there, but I would recommend getting a slightly smaller pair if you're not quite as strong and you find that your technique deteriorates slightly at the end of a session. So I'd build up to these over time, basically. Last thing to increase strength in the pool is a band. I tend to use just an old inner tube and cut it up, and then yeah, just make it as small as possible to try and get around my legs, just to again emphasize the front end of the stroke, make sure that you're catching properly, anchoring properly, so that you can really overemphasize the strength in the stroke and try and pull through all the way to the back, just so that you can really feel the front end rather than again driving from the legs, because even with a Pool Boy you can do a little bit of a flutter kick. Now, in contrast to using Pool Boy paddles and a band, flippers are great, or fins, whatever you want to call them. They're great for, again, concentrating on drills rather than having to over kick. So you can use them to keep the speed and momentum up without having to put over stress and strain on your shoulders or your arms in general, because I find that when I'm doing drills, it's actually quite heavy on the arms if you're not moving very fast through the water. So flippers or fins are a great way of keeping up the speed to a rough swim speed that you'd probably normally do without having to kick too hard, because then it relieves the stress and strain on the shoulders, stops you getting injured, and allows you to concentrate on the drills properly. Goggle-wise, I've been a fan of the Speed Socket pretty much my whole life. It's not really been beaten. So Speedo have created a fantastic set of goggles here. I've not really found anything that works better in terms of stopping the leaking. Yeah, they're not the best for like visibility, but for me, the priority is to not have water in the eyes, and yeah, these are second to none. That being said, I have also been using these from Hoob recently. They're the Eternal, I think, goggles, and they are pretty close to the Speed Socket, and I might be converting to these in the future. So yeah, stay tuned for my longer term review, but for now, I'm using these, testing them out. They've not leaked and they're pretty comfortable, so yeah, so far so good with them. Now, cap is something that I've only really started using properly since starting triathlon, and I found that it really stops my hair from feeling terrible for the rest of the day. The chlorine does really mess it up, so yeah, I just find that this, whilst obviously water still gets in, it's not really as bad. It must be something to do with like tangling in the water or moving around in the water or something like that. But yeah, it does really help. Any old cap will do, but something with decent silicone. I do find that if I've had hair wax in my hair the day before, the cap just slips off, and I always wear my goggles over my cap so that it does try and keep it a little bit more there. Again, something a little bit more recent, but the Apple Watch, I use the Ultra. It's pretty great for open water swimming. It tracks the distance very well and the speed pretty well as well. So I don't really have any complaints about that whatsoever. I do use this nice elastic band not elastic, it's a threaded band. It's quite decent and allows me to just slip it on and off pretty easily, so that if I'm not wearing it for a swim session, I can just take it off, or even just to charge it. It just minimizes hassle, basically. But yeah, really rate that, really rate the watch. Pretty premium product, but pretty fantastic at the same time. Two more things from Hoob. I do really rate the buoyancy shorts, especially for things like drills and technique orientated things, mainly to keep the hips high so that you don't have to concentrate on them as much. I do not have a pair myself, but I have made my dad use them in the past, and I do recommend them to clients. Which brings me on to coaching. If you do want to coach, I do some coaching with Entire, so do check that out in the links below. Yeah, really, really useful for trying to get some technique tips and some day-to-day coaching. So yeah, please check out the links in the description below. Open water, I tend to use the Hoob either Agilis or Varman. I'm in between the two. For the Varman, I tend to use for races, and the Agilis I use for more training purposes. No real reason, I just tend to prefer the buoyancy of the Varman in racing. So yeah, both phenomenal suits, I would highly recommend. Okay, so the product that I wish that I'd had during my swimming career, which I now use on a daily basis in my triathlon career, is this. It's a tiny product, but it's a heart rate monitor, and it's fantastic. It clips into your goggles, so all it is it fits onto here like this, and it sits on your temple, and it's basically, you don't notice it at all, and it just sits there on the goggles and faces inwards to your temple, and it records your heart rate throughout, so you can monitor intensity. And it's sort of like the Form swimming goggles, if you've seen them. I don't have a pair of Form swimming goggles, and I don't track my distance and things like that, but I do look at my heart rate in post analysis. And what that allows me to do is basically what we do on the bike and the run all the time, is just monitor our heart rate, monitor our intensity, and just be sure that we're not either overswimming or underswimming. More often than not, monitoring the fact that we're not overswimming, so that we can actually get more out of the week, make sure that we're able to do each session, and that it's in the right zone. It's been a fundamental part of my triathlon career, because it's all about intensity control really for me, just making sure that I can do the next session, making sure that I can actually get out what I want to throughout the week, not just in the one session alone. So if I overswim one time, I can be analytical about that session afterwards and see the heart rate was a bit high and be like, okay, well next time I just have to swim slightly slower and hopefully the heart rate will be in the right place. If it is, then yeah, jobs are good, and I can do that next time as well. And yeah, I watch the times and I watch the paces on the clock and just make sure that they're all syncing up nicely. So yeah, I hope you got a bit of value out of that. If you did, please hit that subscribe button below and hit the like button. Do check out the links in the description below if you want any of these products for yourself, and I'll see you next time.